Welcome back to the Dark Reading News Desk at Black Hat USA 2025. I'm Terry Sweeney, contributing editor with Dark Reading, and joining me now is Adam Etherington, practice leader with Omdia Cybersecurity. Adam, thanks for joining us on the Dark Reading News Desk.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Terry.
Appreciate you doing this. You were a part of yesterday's Omdia Analyst Summit. For viewers who aren't familiar with that event, describe a bit of the format and the general content.
Yeah, absolutely. People who come to this event have lots of choices, and this is one of the choices. And so the Omdia Analyst Summit is an opportunity. It's a closed-door session where we particularly have a lot of executives from vendors and service providers, and we advise them on the biggest trends that are happening in the industry. And what we try and do is bring the best research that we have across our different teams from Omdia, which includes what was Canalys, ESG, and Omdia Cybersecurity, and we give them a perspective on the market and what it means for them. The focus for yesterday's session was all about AI, and we were trying to cut through some of the hype to get what is the real application and value of AI in cybersecurity.
You must have had your work cut out for you, cutting out that hype.
Yeah, it was a really good conversation across the day because we had different panels that dove into different domains, and we got to go a little deep in some sections, but then also there was plenty of time for questions and answers and a bit of analyst banter between us as well, because we don't always have to agree on things.
Sure. So no surprise that AI is a dominant theme in its many flavors, agentic AI, generative, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there were lots of good insights and perspectives that got shared. Talk about a couple points in particular that stood out for you.
Yeah, one thing that surprised me was maybe it confirmed something that we thought and we hoped wasn't true, which is a lack of readiness around deploying AI, particularly in cybersecurity. So there was some conversations around there are appropriate places and use cases for AI, but it's not always clear. And one of the things that we talked about was we talk about AI as if it's just one ubiquitous thing, right? And Vlad, who's going to be coming up talking soon, was the opener, and he was talking about that if you look at it from the point of view of consumer technology and AI, it is ubiquitous, right? But when you come down to the enterprise and using that internally, there are challenges and obstacles. And there's also a question of what is the right place and application for it. And so we'd make the mistake of using the cloud-first approach we went a few years ago, where it is, well, because it's good, we should put it everywhere, rather than thinking, well, where is the best place for it and what's appropriate?
Is there a sense then that cloud can handle any demand or requirement that AI throws at it?
Yeah. Software as a service will solve everything, right? No. The challenge, I think, is that previously I was working on a lot of cloud coverage as well, and some of the hard lessons we learned there were if questions around which cloud is best when you're talking about multiple clouds. Hybrid cloud is a reality now on-prem versus different environments because of security, latency, performance, sovereignty, other considerations. And now cybersecurity is a very, very important component of that. What's changed with AI is that it almost promises to bring all these different things together, but in the context of changing business processes. Right, so we're talking about CRM and around sales and marketing and human resources. So there's much more of an impact there. And so the risks are also higher if things go wrong.
Am I understanding right that there's an idea that one AI will fit all these different applications or needs, or will be shoehorned accordingly? What's happening?
Yeah, one of the things we talked about was what is AI? And so you could make the mistake of assuming it's all the same thing. And you, in the opening, you quite rightly pointed out that there are different classes of AI. And if we keep it broadly, we're not going to talk about narrow versus general, but like Skynet, the whole thing, right? But in specific sense at the moment, machine learning and RPA has been around for a very long time and has a very, very solid place in business. But we run the risk, and there was conversations around this of, if you're a platform vendor, a provider, or a niche provider, how are you positioning AI? And because it's table stakes now. You need to have some sort of messaging about AI, but what is it? What type? Is it generative? Is it agentic? Is it machine learning rebadged to something else? Because you run the risk of saying, well, it does all these things, winning the customer over perhaps, and then they find out 6 or 12 months later, you can't do what you've promised, or it's misrepresented, or it creates integration challenges. So that's another problem to avoid.
Well, so one is struck by the astonishing amounts of money that are being thrown at this by nation states, by governments,
Sure.
by the world's largest corporations,
Yeah.
all trying to chase some sort of advantage or innovation. It's a little crazy. It doesn't feel too strong to say that.
It's interesting that you just reminded me of something that I didn't get to bring up at this is a tiny scoop, but an insight that I didn't get to share at the summit yesterday. And so when Vlad was talking about, so he was talking about the size of the AI market and the growth, and it's undeniable, the amount of money and capital being spent. It's unquestionable. It reminds me of, if you think back to the Industrial Revolution, there's been periods where we've gone through massive changes in investments, in infrastructure, which have then served later generations. And I believe we're probably at one of those points where we have to make these investments and will yield benefits in the decade to come. But we're right at this early stage where it's really taking shape on what's the right role of those investments in different industries, including cybersecurity.
Well, I guess you apparently caused a bit of a stir with a comment you made at the summit yesterday that 90% of enterprise AI projects will fail. First of all, congratulations on the boldness of that. What did you mean? And give us some context that supports this thesis.
Yeah, and I should say that I'm not condoning failure. I'm not saying that we should fail. I'm not saying that I want anyone to fail. But as an analyst, it's my job to call out when I see challenges or issues. And one of them is, I think, it's not just the hype, but if you do think about the complexity of more broadly around enterprise AI. And so I'm very privileged in my role that I get to hear about roadmap developments from all the big ISVs like Salesforce, and then the platform players, the service providers who do the managed and security services, the integration work around these platforms. And the conversations I've had with CISOs and CIOs at these events is often, if they do 10 projects, maybe one of them will get through to scale, past proof of concept. That sort of statistic is alarming to me because it means that there's 9 that are great ideas, they may have a semi-decent business case, but they never go anywhere. And so that's why I'm writing a report about this at the moment, because I think there are things that we should know from our lessons with cloud and other technologies that we can take to this AI journey so we don't make the same mistakes, or we make them faster and learn faster.
All right. Adam, close us out with some advice for CISOs and CIOs from your research and from yesterday's summit.
Yeah, I'll just give one. And one of the call-outs that came from broader research we did in the IT domain is one of the biggest focus we're going to see is on strategy and architecture. So for any CISOs, it's about how do I best enable this digital change, this rate of migration to new applications and capabilities within the business process, while also enabling a degree of security and privacy that doesn't have us come up against issues with compliance and regulation, but doesn't also stifle innovation. So I think we're going to see a lot more focus from the C-level on that strategy and architecture across different domains and how it ties into IT architecture and business process.
Great stuff. Well, Adam, if nothing else, you've brought some much needed sobriety to the whole industry conversation around AI. Thanks so much for stopping by the Dark Reading News Desk.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We've been talking with Adam Etherington from Omdia Cybersecurity. This has been Terry Sweeney for the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks for joining us for this segment. See you next time.